Alrighty, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Garrett Curtis. I'm a solutions developer here with Infowise Solutions. Thanks so much for joining us. Today's topic is SharePoint automation from the browser. Let's see, a few things before we get started here. Questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and question those on the webinar questions area. We'll answer them as we go. Also, if there's time at the end, I will answer questions over the webinar, so feel free to ask away. Okay, also, since we're doing automation from the browser, I wanted to do a little segment at the very end to sort of walk through any automation questions you might have. So if you have a specific process or something in mind that you're struggling with in SharePoint, feel free to post a question about it, and if we have time, we'll try to answer some of those as well. Okay, so let's see here. A few other things. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our blog as well as YouTube after the fact. All right, cool. One more thing before we go. Infowise is going to be at Microsoft Ignite in Atlanta in next week. So if you're there as well, please feel free to stop by at booth 2569. We'd love to say hi and talk about your needs. Okay, let's get started here. So what is SharePoint automation today? Well, basically, if you had to automate some sort of process in SharePoint out of the box, you would be using SharePoint Designer workflows and probably InfoPath forms to build your solution. Well, of course, those tools work great, but they are time-consuming, difficult to manage your changes, and of course, you have to learn this extra software. Now, looking forward to tomorrow's world, Microsoft has announced that SharePoint Designer and InfoPath are both appreciated. 2013 is going to be the last version there. So what do we do? What do we do today when we want to be producing more simple automation, automation that you can turn around very quickly, and also that's going to work in SharePoint 2016 and also Office 365, where already we're starting to see some limitations put on these legacy tools. So how do we do this better? Well, the better way, of course, is Infowise Ultimate Forms. And essentially what Infowise Ultimate Forms is a code-free solution that integrates directly with SharePoint. So this is a solution that you can use entirely from the browser. Like I said, there's no code. The changes are very easy to make. And it's just a much more effective and integrated tool than trying to cobble together a solution using SharePoint Designer and InfoPath and some of these other third-party tools. So let's take a look at what Infowise Ultimate Forms actually adds. It's probably best to think of it as three separate areas that it tackles, one of which is forms. So these are things like InfoPath. You can build really nice custom forms with lots of automation built in. Processes. Now these are things like sending emails or automating actions, things like that. That's what we're going to focus on today, is the process side of things. And then also Infowise Ultimate Forms has a nice reporting side of it too. So if you want to do charts or calendars and graphs and things like that, you'll see some of that today, but there's some great features there with reporting too. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into a little bit of a demo here. What I'm going to show you is built entirely on Office 365. It's important to note that all of the features that I'm going to show you here also work on your on-premises environment. So if you were developing in both solutions or either one of the solutions, the experience is going to be the same for you. Okay, so let's get started here. I built a little test site here in Office 365, and the first thing I'd like to show you is a very simple vacation tracker. And so let's take a look at the forms first. Okay, so I'll walk you through this. Basically, in this case, you are an employee, requesting vacation from your employer, and we've built a SharePoint solution to do that. And so here you can see right away some of the nice Infowise features we have. Already you can see that this form isn't your typical SharePoint new form. So we've done some Infowise customization here. Let's see. So I'll fill this out. Employee description, let's say we're going to Ignite. All right, so some of the SharePoint automation that we have here. Let's say we put our dates in and we've made a bit of mistake there where the end is after the start. And so right here we can see the Infowise column validation features. So this goes way beyond the default out-of-the-box SharePoint validation. We can do date validation. You'll see later we can do things like email and phone numbers and stuff too. But you can put rules in there to prevent bad data from being entered. There we go. Okay, great. So we've created this new list entry. And now let's go back in there and take a look. Okay, so now that we've gone back into this form, this is essentially the edit form here. You can see that we've actually got a new tab that showed up. While we were submitting the request, we didn't need to worry about approvals, but now that the request is part of the system, we wanted to have an approval for the manager. So let's say Vladi is going to sign this. Of course, it's me, not Vladi, but another really great Infowise feature here is the Infowise signature field, which you can use to manage signatures and approvals in your SharePoint environment. Okay, great. So that's pretty straightforward, not very difficult. Let's step it up a little bit. Let's say we wanted to add some automation here to automatically pre-fill the employee name rather than making the user do it when they start the form. So to do that, we're going to add some Infowise automation. So right from the browser, we go over to the Infowise design area, and here's essentially the dashboard for all the different Infowise tools that we have available in SharePoint. And so here's where you can control things like your tabs and your permissions of validation, custom actions, email alerts, all the way down to some of those special fields like the Infowise signature field that I showed you earlier. Okay, so in this case, what we wanted to do was automatically fill in the employee name with the current user. So you could do that with some custom form design using InfoPath or SharePoint Designer, but instead all we have to do is go in here and set up a default value for this form. All right, so we want the employee name to be a dynamically calculated value based on the current user. And so what you're seeing here is what we call the Infowise value picker. And basically this is just a list of functions that Infowise brings with it. So a lot of these are things having to do with dates, maybe the current user, things like what's the current URL, functions, more complicated ones like replace and things like that if you wanted to manipulate text, as well of course as all of the values. So in this case what we wanted to do was set employee equal to the current user. There we go. Don't need any custom conditions in this case, but maybe you wanted to only apply this rule if the user was part of a certain group. So you could do some security that way. Okay, we've got the rule in there. Looks good. So we'll go ahead and save that and head back over to our form. All right, let's make sure that actually saves here before we try to demonstrate it. Okay, so now that that default value is filled out, we can open the new item up, and right away you can see that my name's been populated in the form. And of course I can change that if I was filling this out for somebody else. I can go ahead and do that. But right there you can see the power of the Infowise automation. One line of adding a configuration, and here we go. Now every time that somebody uses this form, they're going to save a few seconds trying to type their name in. And it's little things like that that you can really put together to make a very powerful tool. Okay, so let's put some more automation on this system right now. Let's say we wanted to send an email out to the manager when the request was generated, saying, hello manager, of course you need to fill out the approval for this request. So again, we could use Workflow Designer to go build a complicated workflow to do emails. You could have the manager subscribe to the alert using the SharePoint out-of-the-box alerts, but now they're going to get every alert. You don't necessarily need that. What we're going to do is use the Infowise alerts. So this is available in two places. Either we can go back to the design screen and say alerts, or right from the context menu we can say add alert. And what we're going to do is create a email profile that sends the email to the manager when the manager gets filled out. All right, let's see here. It's still loading. Give it a minute to finish. I'm on a pretty remote network right now, so it's kind of slow Great, okay, there we go. So we are going to set up a new email alert in the system. So first off, we get to configure the recipients of the alert. So in this case, I'm going to send this to the manager. So if you remember right, in one of these alerts, if we take a look at it, great. And under the approval tab, we have the manager field there with a people picker essentially. So by saying users in column manager, basically whoever the manager is going to get the email. We can set a from, in this case it's just my email address, but maybe you want to say vacations@infowise.microsoft.com. And this is basically if you set up your own email box, you would be able to send emails from the system as that person. We can also set up reply tos. So maybe it was Curtis G at infowise.microsoft.com, but maybe we're replying to somebody else, vacations@infowisesolutions.com. So there's a lot of configuration that you get out of this menu. That's really great. Okay, moving on to what to send. So our goal was to send an email when the new approval has been created. Unfortunately, when that happens, we don't quite have the manager filled out. So what I'm going to do is, as soon as somebody puts a manager in there, it's going to send the email out. And so what we're going to do is trigger this if the item is added or modified, and then we're going to add a condition that says only send this when the manager changes. There we go. I'll just pick the manager field there. Great. Okay, so we've got this alert set up here. We've got an alert that's going to send to the manager when the manager changes, essentially. We're going to send it immediately, and now we can use some mail templates. The default template is just a very basic template, but you can see here we have a very nice sort of what you see is what you get editor. We're going to add a new template. So this is going to be vacation mail vacation request is the name. All right, and then I can basically just either construct an email out of this. So vacation request, and then maybe I'll put the name of the person, the employee's name in the subject. So I'll just do that real quick. And then we'll say, hello, the employee has requested vacation from, and then we'll just put the dates in there too. We can even do that. Vacation start to vacation end. All right, please approve the request. And then we can even give them a link to the item right here. So we'll just add the item link to the body. There we go. Okay, so they'll get the email. It'll say so-and-so has requested vacation from this date to this date. Please approve the request, and then there's a link. That's all you need to do. And then we've got that template set up. And if you wanted to get really advanced with this, you can send it as an SMS, things like that. Okay, so now that the alert has been added, basically it's live right now. So as soon as somebody makes a new request and adds a manager, it will send them an email. Of course, since we're on the demo server, I don't think I'm going to be able to demonstrate it for you, but we can give it a shot here. Long weekend, let's say. Oh, there we go. Save that request. Now it's not going to send because I don't have a manager yet, so we'll go ahead and put a manager in there. Garrett, great. It's put my name in there twice. Okay, so this will have triggered the email. I'm not sure if I'm going to get it, again, because this is a demo system. I don't think the emails are really hooked up correctly. But there you go. That's all you have to do. And you can see that there's a lot of features in here. You can really get complicated with the conditions. You can do CCs, BCCs. You can set up exclusions so you don't send to certain people in case you really wanted to protect that. There's a lot of functionality you can do, and the best part is it's all from the browser. It's all entirely code-free. Okay, so let's move on from the vacation tracker and go take a look at another system we have, which is an applicant tracker. So in this case, what we have is a system that's tracking applications. Maybe they're job applications, maybe they're applications for a training session, maybe they're applications to have a demo. Doesn't really matter. All right, so some things that we have here to show you. one of the things here is that I've got a first name, last name column, and then a full name column. And you can see as I enter things into these other two, it's automatically populating them into the full name. So this is another Infowise feature, which is dynamic values, just like we saw before with entering the username into the field. We can sort of combine two other fields into a third field. So this is a really great feature if you're working with really long, complicated forms. If you automate this, then it just saves everybody time. And this is one of these things that's very easy to do with Infowise Solutions, but would have been pretty difficult to implement using SharePoint Designer. Okay, some other things we have here. So let's say I put an email in there, but I forget to type something in, or maybe I put a phone number in that's a little bit too short. I can demonstrate some of this validation. So we have validation that says you must have a real email in there. Phone numbers might be must be the correct length. In this case, I had some validation set up to where you couldn't keep it at please select. So if I change it to something else, now it will let me save it. Great, so there's some of your form validation. So some other cool things that we have, at least with forms, watch as I change the app type, we're actually going to get new tabs showing up there. So essentially, it's very dynamic. So based on the values here, we can guide the user into different parts of the form. Maybe this isn't strictly automation, but it definitely helps to streamline the user interface for your users. And of course, we can have different fields on these different forms as well. So that's a really great feature if you're trying to, sort of streamline the process for your users. Okay, so let's take a look at some more of this automation. I see we have a demo details tab here, but that probably should have only been shown when I had the demo field selected. So let me show you how to add that little bit of automation there for showing and hiding. Okay, so let's, right from the browser, of course, go into the Infowise design screen for this list and take a look at our tabs and tab permissions. Now, this is the area where I'm configuring all of these tabs and what columns show up in which tab. But also, so for example, here's the demo details tab, that one there, and I can see it's got two fields on there, but I'm going to add some permissions. So what I want to do is hide the tab if the, what's it called, app type field does not say demo. So we'll say app type not equals demo. Great. So we've got a new condition in there. It's going to hide it for all of these forms if the app type is not demo. Great. And then we're going to make it writable if the app type equals demo. Very simple here. A little bit of logic. Add that. Add that. All right. So just to recap, we're going to hide the tab so it's not going to be visible if the app type does not equal demo. And we're going to make the tab writable if the app type does equal demo. So we'll go ahead and save that change. Once it saves, we'll just refresh the list and see it right away.
Hey Garrett, I'm just going to pause you for 1 second. I just want to remind the attendees, if you guys have any questions about the product, go ahead and post those in the chat interface on the side, and that way we can address those towards the end of the call. Thanks.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, that's a great reminder. Please ask away. Okay, great. So now that that has saved, I can just right away refresh this and let's see, change the way from demo, and you can see it's gone. And so this, not only is this cool automation in that I can sort of hide and show things based on a dynamic field, but also it's immediate. I don't have to go deploy a new workflow for items that are already existing in my list. Right away they get the changes. So this is a really great way to manage your change in SharePoint. Okay, let's take a look at a little bit more automation here since we have a bit more time. Okay, so one of the things that you might be familiar with if you've used a lot of InfoPath, I think they're called, oh, I forget the name, something to do with multiple. But what we want to do is with our application, we want to be able to add supporting documents. So we could do this using the attach file feature, and this would just be in the SharePoint attachments. But I don't have as much control over that as I might like. Let's say we had some requirements where we have to name the documents a certain way. So for example, I'll just show you what we have built here. So we're going to, straight from the form, we're going to add a supporting document. There we go. Okay, so this is basically uploading the document into a SharePoint library and then associating it to my request. So app 1004 now has a nice new document attached to it, and we can add multiple documents too. And essentially in the background, this is just a SharePoint document library that we have associated to the applicant tracking system. And then we also had another requirement, just a requirement from the business, let's say, that every document that gets uploaded has to be named with the application number. So by default, it was just EOB2, EOB1, but I have a bit of automation in the background here that's actually saying, okay, as it gets updated, rename the document to follow our business practices. And so this is something, again, that you could do using Workflow Designer, but it's much easier to do using Infowise Solutions. And I'll show you how I did that here in a second. Just to reiterate, basically, this is the applicant tracking list. It's a very simple list, but we have these associated documents which I can get to straight from the user interface. It's very simple. So if we take a look at our supporting documents list that I built, first off, I'm going to return to classic SharePoint instead of the new interface. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at some of the automation in this library. So I'll just, again, right from the user interface, go to the Infowise design screen. And in this case, we're going to use actions. And these are very simple to implement, but they're very powerful. Essentially, with actions, I can do all of the things you see here. And most of the time, I'm doing is updating or creating list items. So as I make changes somewhere, I want to make similar changes somewhere else, that kind of thing. But we can do all sorts of good stuff. You can integrate your existing workflows. So rather than starting them using a checkbox, you could start them very dynamically based on conditions. You can send emails, you can call web services, lots of different features here. If you are on premises, you could even run PowerShell scripts. So it's really great for automation. But let's take a look at that action that's renaming the documents themselves. So essentially, here's where all the magic happens. What this logic does is as new documents are added to the list, it's going to go look up the ID of the parent, the associated parent, and append that to the beginning of the name of the item. So what we're going to do is set the value of the name to the lookup function. We're going to look up the app number from the parent. Now, if you remember, the app number was a number that was automatically assigned to each of these applicant tracking list items, and this was done using an Infowise tool as well to automatically enumerate those. So it's going to look up that app number, add it to the name, and that's all. And so basically it's going to run every time a document is edited, so long as the name doesn't already have app in it. So we don't want to overwrite it every time it gets updated. But basically that makes sure that all of our documents are going to follow our business practices. And it's really great. It's just one simple action. It's very easy to put together. You can string 2 or 3 of these together, or maybe up to as many as you want, to build a very complicated state machine that can do almost anything. So yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, don't have too much more time. Let me show you some of the reporting features that Infowise has, since we did touch on that. If we take a look here, first off, we have some charting. So Infowise has a really nice chart package, which basically watches lists. So in this case, we're taking a look at all of our applications that we got, and we're going to be graphing out the type of application. So here you can see the 3 different types of applications, and it's just going to be a very dynamic system. If I were to, let's say, delete one of these demos, there we go. Demo was green. It's going to go from 40%. If I refresh the page, now it's back to 25%. So you see it's very dynamic. It's very up-to-date, really great graphing package. Another cool reporting feature we have is the calendar system. So this is back to the vacation tracker. The requirement was I wanted to be able to map on a calendar when people were on vacation. So here's all the vacations for September in my little demo system. If I mouse over, I actually get more information there too. So I can see who's doing what, when, and I can stack up and see, okay, on the 27th, basically everybody's going to be gone. We better have some planning for that. And then I can go to a Gantt chart view. We can do all sorts of great stuff with the Infowise calendar plugin. So these are just some of the reporting features that Infowise has. Cool, so that pretty much takes us to the end of our time here. I really hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask those. Let's see if we have any now. We do have a couple. I'll answer them right now, but before I do that, I just want to reiterate that if you're going to be at Microsoft Ignite in Atlanta next week, please stop by our booth, booth number 2569. We'd love to talk to you. Okay, so let's see some of these questions. A question from Michael. Michael's office is running SharePoint 2010. Is this compatible? This is absolutely compatible with 2010. All the features that you just saw today are present on both the on-premise edition and the 365 edition, so all this stuff works great there. Okay, can you create all of this stuff on a test farm and then promote it into a production farm? So that's a very good question. This is something that we see a lot with things like workflows and things like that, where you're investing a lot of time into coding a solution and now you want to deploy it into another SharePoint environment. The nice part about Infowise is because it's so flexible and it's so easy to change after the fact. Typically when we deploy things, we tend to just deploy them directly into production. And you can sort of adopt more of a lean approach to things. So as issues crop up, you can now just make the changes and apply them directly to your workflows or to your work without having to test them very thoroughly in another place. You can just make lots of little changes and sort of test as you go. But we do have tools, of course, where if you want to set up a solution in an environment and move it to another environment, we can let you do that. So certainly if you wanted to maintain a very strict dev and production environment, we have tools to help you with that. Another question here from Barry. Can you connect to SQL servers with a data connection utility? Great question. One of the Infowise tools that you may have seen as I went through these menus here is called importing. So with the importing tool, we can connect to email or to a database web service. And since you asked about databases, we'll show you that one first. But basically, you can connect to any of these kinds of databases and basically watch a table. So as a table is updated in the database, you can now, as a new item is added or maybe as an item is changed, you can apply changes to your SharePoint list. So you can connect them very thoroughly with that. There's some other features we have where if you had a stored procedure on your database, you could call the stored procedure from SharePoint using an action. Let's see, email is pretty nice. You can actually use email importing to watch an email inbox, and as you get emails, it will either import them into SharePoint or perform actions on existing items. And if you combine the email importing with the email alerts, you can essentially create a very nice system for, let's say, approvals. So maybe in my vacation system, I would like to send an email to the manager and then have them be able to reply approved, and that will automatically approve the item in my vacation tracking system. And so this lets you sort of get to users who wouldn't normally be on your SharePoint environment through email importing. And there's a lot more information on that on our website, and we have plenty of training and stuff to walk you through how to set these things up. Okay, let's see. Kamal asks, how is this tool different than things like Nintex, Adobe Forms, things like that? One of the ways is it's integrated directly into the browser like some of these other tools. Another way is that I think we're priced very fairly. I think you'll find that we are much more affordable for your solutions than some of these other tools that you may have found in the marketplace. Again, you can find pricing on our website. Let's see, is the content responsive for responsive web design? The content is built entirely using normal features like CSS and things like that. So absolutely you can make this a responsive website. We do have some mobile features to where if you wanted to develop a form solely for mobile use, we have features there too. So certainly this whole interface is responsive. Now I see we do have a solution, answer to the question says it isn't designed for mobile devices. Perhaps that's true, but we do have mobile features. So certainly you can use this with mobile devices. There are mobile forms and things like that that you can take advantage of with Infowise Solutions. All right, cool. Happy to answer any other questions. Let's see, one from Steve here. If we already own Alert Pro, which is one of our features, do we get a discount on the other features? Of course, we would love to help you with that. Go ahead and reach out to us at support@infowisesolutions.com and we can help you with the details of purchasing and things like that. All right, well, thanks again for joining us. Like I said, this webinar has been recorded and will be available on YouTube and on our blog. You can reach us at infowisesolutions.com. And like I said, the blog is available with all sorts of news and things like that. You can just go and take a look. So thanks so much for joining us. And
Hey, Garrett, it's Will. I just wanted to remind everybody, for those of you who are interested in the product, definitely the next step would be to go ahead and download a free trial. So you can see that big orange button right on the homepage of the Infowise site. Of course, that's available both for on-premise and Office 365. So I really encourage you to go ahead and install that in your environment so you can take a look and try out some of these things that Garrett just demoed.
Yeah, that's a great point, Will. In addition to that, we also have some pre-made solutions. If you didn't want to code your own solution up, you can take a look at some of our solutions that we have sort of pre-set up for you. It's a great starting point. Again, these are all mostly have free trials. You can go and put those into your environment and right away get started with a very robust feature set there too. Like I mentioned before, this works on Office 365 and on premises. We have free trials for both editions. Yeah. Okay, let's see. All right, well, thanks again, guys. I hope you have a great afternoon, and we'll see those of you at Ignite. Again, booth 2569. Have a great day.